Hello, everyone. Oh boy, spooky season is among us, and we are talking about slashers today, slasher horror. I'm just going to cut right to the chase. Let's bring on our guests. First, Matthew Myers, aka Matt Chapman, who has been on this channel plenty of times for draft day. I think you've only missed one or two drafts. You and I are joined by three very horror-oriented experts today. But Matt, how
Yes.
you feeling being kind of because usually you're like one of the most expertise, like knowledgeable
Right.
people show. And not to say you're not knowledgeable here, but we got the three heavy hitters today. How you feeling?
Right. Uh, I am brushing up on my horror knowledge, especially in the last couple months, and going through a bunch of the franchises. But I'm a movie guy, and I've watched all of the horror movies that are considered good movies. And then now I'm starting to verse myself in this, so I'm a little intimidated by the caliber of person we're about to talk to. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, let's talk to two of them. They're on the same screen. It is Chad and Carrie. Let me put you up there so we can see your name. Loomis, that's right. Which Loomis? There's three movies you can pull from. That's pretty fun.
Oh man.
Chad, this is not your first time here. Obviously, you're always on the channel, always picture this and other shows. And Carrie, you've been seen in the Marvel trivia sphere, but this is your first time on draft day. How y'all doing? You two are some horror experts. How you feeling about slashers?
Well, it's a good thing that dialogue is not a category because I just wanted to say, "Welcome to prime time, bitch."
Love it. How you feeling about your first draft? You excited?
Yeah, I'm really excited. Thanks for having me on the show.
Of course. And like I said, you two are experts, so I can't wait to hear just all the insight you all have to offer. And of course, we have returning. He was on the Star Wars draft. He has since been married. Welcoming to the channel for the first time, Chris Baker Scott. How you doing? Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. We talked about Nightmare on Elm Street 2 on FrameWreck. You were on the Star Wars draft day. We're back. We knew we had to have you for a horror themed draft day. How you feeling? Are you a big fan of slashers? I assume you are.
I'm feeling great. I'm a huge fan of slashers, horror in general, but slashers, they're typically my go-to. Just, that's the comfort.
Love it. And obviously, congratulations on your marriage. That's something Matt told me
Thank you.
last month. Congratulations. So, surrounded by a newlywed man, a very happily married couple up there, and then Matt and I are just going to be marveling at all three of your horror expertise. But let's get into the draft itself. As we said before, we are doing slashers. So the draft kind of goes as it always does. Random draft order will be selected by this wheel. The draft is snaked, meaning whoever has the fifth pick will have the first pick for the next, and so on and so forth. And of course, with every draft, we try to break it up into categories if we can. We are going to be doing 5 very slasher specific categories. 1 villain / killer. Usually they go hand in hand. 1 final girl. This is usually, we all know what final girl is, but for those listening at home that don't know this term, it's the girl who's left standing. One standing. Sometimes across a franchise, sometimes across just one movie, sometimes amongst a movie in a franchise, whatever you want to constitute as a final girl. There might be a little bit of bending of the rules there, but that's okay. 1 death scene. So yeah, we're gonna get a little bit into spoiler story, but it should be gone without saying that a lot of these death scenes that we're going to draft are going to be very, very famous and popular, so you're probably going to have heard of them. But spoiler warnings just ahead of time in advance. And 1 prop. This can be a murder. This can be another prop that pertains to slasher horror genre. I'm very interested to see what everyone picks. And sequel. But to keep it spicy, we're going to limit it to 1 per franchise. Nightmare sequel. Chris can't take one after Chad's taking one off the table. If Matt is taking a Friday the 13th, I can't take a Friday the 13th for that. So be strategic in which sequels and which franchises you pick, because then you're pretty much putting all the other sequels from a franchise off limits for everyone else. If anyone disagrees with the eligibility of a pick, if you think a film is not a sequel, if you think it's a prequel, or, well, I guess prequel as well, just a continuation of a franchise. But if you think a prop is not a prop, or you think I don't know. I don't know how you can veto whether it's a death scene or not, but you know what I mean. If there's a veto, we'll throw it out. You need 3 of 4 other people to veto a pick. I think that's pretty much it for the rules. I don't foresee us having many vetoes here, but you never know. So without further ado, here, the moment of truth, Matt's favorite part of the show, where we decide the draft order. And this first person will get to pick their spot in the not necessarily have to go first or second or third or fourth or fifth. They can pick. Chris, where would you like to go in the order? Would you like
Always
first,
the person
second, third,
next
fourth,
to
or
me.
fifth?
I will go first, I think.
All right, Chris with the number 1
no.
overall pick. That is exciting. We're down to the 4 here. I feel like I'm in a horror movie right now. Everyone's like getting killed off the wheel. Ooh.
Right next to me. So we're all clear.
I'm gonna do something interesting here. I'm
Fifth.
gonna go fourth because
Fourth.
I want a certain like 3 picks, so I want to get too close to another, but I don't want to be the last pick of the draft. So I'm gonna go fourth. It's a strategic thing. I've gone fourth once in Game of Thrones for me, but we'll see how it goes.
Hey,
I'm
you're
trying to
both
be-
next to me now, so congratulations, one of you.
Matt, would you like to go second?
I'm going
third, or-
second.
Okay,
I'm
Matt's
going
going
second.
second.
There's one I need.
I think I know what it is.
So Carrie and Chad are in the same box, but one of them will be third and one of them will be fifth. So
Can you guys hear us, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
And Chad, you're gonna get to decide whether you go third or fifth in this draft, and that will also decide Carrie's positioning. Where would you like to stick yourself, and where would you like to put Carrie in this draft?
I'll go ahead and do fifth.
All right, so Carrie will be third. So the draft order is Chris, Matt. I'm just writing it down for myself. Dill, Carrie. See, this is
Yeah.
my visual. Dill and then Chad rearing us out this draft at the 5th pick. Chad will of course get the first pick of round 2, I said, and it'll go back and forth. So, Chris, you're on the clock. First pick of round 1. I'm nervous because I don't know. I don't think there's an obvious one here. Maybe there is. Let us know, Chris. What are you going to take for your first round pick?
I'm going to be super basic, and I'm going to go with my final girl for my first pick, and I'm picking Sydney Prescott.
Yes.
Nice.
Because
Scream.
I had to. So, yeah. Yeah, like, I feel like it's an obvious choice, but personally, like, that was one of the first, not the first slasher that I watched. Scream wasn't, but it was one of the first that I watched that I was like, oh, these can be a lot of fun and like self-referential. So I love this.
Mhm.
And also she's just a great character.
Yeah, and
She's
you get the benefit of having for 5 films to just, I think is really nice. Matt, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just gonna say that's a really great pick. Luckily, it's not you didn't steal my one that I have to have, so that makes me happy. But that's a great pick because not only is she in a really great series of films, but also like she was the final girl for a new generation. Like
Right.
she because that whole series is about
Matt, before you continue,
deconstructing-
I just want to say one rule I forgot in the rules.
Yeah.
Don't tip picks early. I know you don't, Matt, but just for any newcomer people listening, we don't tip picks early. So, yeah, we're not going to list off all our final girls when picking our one. So, yeah.
Right.
Matt, I didn't think you were.
No. But she's that whole series is about deconstructing the slasher genre, and she had to be the prototypical final girl, and she was that, and based like became the prototype for a bunch of movies in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like it's a genius pick. It's very, very good.
Thank you.
Chad,
Yeah.
Carrie, any thoughts?
Yeah, Sydney Prescott was my number one final girl on my list as well. There are others that are like, really, really iconic. But that's such a great pick because Sydney is like one of the strongest final girls out there. And also one of my first, one of my first, loves in horror. So yeah, great pick, Chris.
Nice.
Yeah, she was
pick.
also my first pick. I have
Wow.
a lot of love for Sydney.
Cool. Yeah, so a lot of love for Sydney Prescott here. But let's continue on. Like some of the early picks actually require the least conversation because we all kind of universally agree. Like, yeah, those are great picks. So Matt, what is going to be your first pick of your roster here? You got the second pick in round 1. What are you going?
I know what's coming.
Sydney was not my number 1. She was my number 2. This is my number 1. I know what Chad thinks is my number 1, but it's not. My number 1 pick is my final girl.
Oh.
And while Sydney was the prototype for a new generation and was the poster child for a new generation, I am choosing the final girl of all generations. That is Laurie Strode from the Halloween franchise.
I knew it. That's a good
Laurie
one.
Strode will forever be the final girl that I see when I think of a final girl. Halloween, the original Halloween is my favorite horror movie. It's my favorite slasher. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And a lot of that is down to how believable she is as just a person in a bad situation, which is what a final girl's job is, really. And yeah, I absolutely love her. I want to let other people say nice things about her, but I love Laurie Strode.
Another one that again has lasted the test of time is in multiple movies, which
Yeah.
also you get a benefit from. Even though I do think some of the sequels don't utilize her very well, especially Halloween 2. I don't love how she's in a hospital the whole time. I think it's
Right.
a waste of potential. But that
And
first
in
movie,
Kills
she's
as well.
so
And in Kill, she's in the
iconic.
hospital the whole
Yeah.
time too.
Yeah, no, I forgot that movie even existed, guys. Come on, I tried to my mind. No, but yeah, great pick. Jamie Lee Curtis, iconic as well. Like
Yes,
still
yes, so
working,
good,
a
so
huge star today. Always a huge star. This was her star-making turn. So yeah,
Yeah,
again,
she's like
yeah,
she
hard-
is the prototype for the final girl. She is the one. So, while I love Sydney Prescott with all my being, Laurie Strode as well. She is basically the perfect foil for Michael Myers. So boom,
Mhm.
great pick.
I also want to say that not only is she great, in that movie, uh, I think I really like both histories that exist for this character, like the history where starting with the second Halloween and into H2O and all that, where she's the sister of Michael Myers, and then this other one where she's just this tortured person who has been afraid of this one encounter for her whole life. I love both versions, and I love how well Jamie Lee Curtis plays both characters almost as different types of characters, and I really love that.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on. Somebody, I said I wasn't going to say more. But
Any thoughts, Chris? Any thoughts on Laurie?
No, I love Laurie Strode. I hate that in some situations she's done really dirty by this franchise. Like Halloween 4, I think she's just killed off screen.
Off screen.
But no, but she's the idea of a final girl. Like, perfect. Good choice.
And fun fact, they wanted to kill her off in Halloween 2, but they didn't. They did.
Oh, really?
Wow. Any other thoughts on Laurie? I mean,
and
again,
that would have been fine because apparently they can't make sequels to any of the other movies. They have to just keep making sequels to Halloween, and that's all they ever do.
Yeah, it's like another slasher, which we may bring up later, where just time keeps repeating itself. It's like she keeps dying and waking up. Carrie, you can talk a little bit about Laurie and transition into your first pick since you are the third pick of this draft. Are you gonna go girl? Or are you gonna go somewhere else? Where are you going with this pick?
I'm also gonna grab my final girl up.
Wow.
And yeah, well, Laurie Strode was my second, so we're moving through them. And I mean, we probably all know who this is gonna be. She's, probably the last famous final girl. I'm so sorry, Chad. And it's Nancy Thompson from the Nightmare on Elm Street series.
She was my second.
Yeah, she's an amazing final girl. And she's also in multiple movies and is amazing in all of them.
She was not my she's on my list. She's third on my list after Laurie, Sydney, and then Nancy. Yeah. She's third on my list on there. She's not my favorite final girl from that franchise, but I still have her higher than the other final girls that from that franchise that I like because she's so iconic.
Yeah, Nancy Thompson is really up there for me. At one point, I did put her number one just because I love her, tenacity to like go and just, she's so determined to take Freddie down, and she's going to do everything she can. And everyone else doesn't believe her, but she won't let that sway her, and she ends up foiling him at the end. She's amazing. I love her. And Heather Langenkamp returned for what is it? Midnight
Club.
Midnight Club.
Midnight Club.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's really good in that.
Chill out. It's
I
great.
haven't watched that yet.
So I have a question, drafters. Does this take Langenkamp off the board for New Nightmare?
Yes.
Or is this technically the same? Okay,
It's
so
the same.
not.
You know what? You're right. Hold on.
No, that's a good
a very
question.
good point.
I'm not saying I'm going to draft her because only Chad
play-
and I have final girls left. But I'm thinking, like, does that take every iteration of Nancy Thompson, including the meta Heather Langenkamp playing herself, playing Nancy Thompson, or like
so
how
good.
far does this go?
That's so good because I was like yes, but I'm thinking of Nancy in Dream Warriors, not Nancy in
Right. What I
because she
thought you
doesn't
said,
play
too.
Nancy in
Yeah.
New Nightmare. She plays Heather Langenkamp.
Yeah, I think you
Yeah.
can pick Heather
So
Langenkamp
I think
as
you
like
can
the
pick Heather
character.
Langenkamp.
And that's not me tipping a pick. That's the Darth Vader Anakin Skywalker talk of like we need to
Yeah.
clarify this now, so that way when Chad picks another final girl and I'm left with one left, I can maybe.
Yeah, I would say this is Darth Vader and Anakin, not Smeagol and Gollum. They are different things.
Okay, cool. So I have the fourth pick of the round. I'm not gonna go final girl because there's only two left, and Chad and I mean, there's still a lot of slashers to pick from, and the three iconic ones have been taken off the board. I'm gonna go with my kill scene just because I want this on the I want this on the graphic. Chad breathing the sigh of relief. There's two categories where I like have my number ones that I really want to get. This is my strategy. Hopefully, get this one, have it wrap around to me. It is, I think, the most iconic kill scene, not in slasher movies, but in movies in general. It is the a shower scene from Psycho.
Okay.
It's iconic. They've made a whole documentary about the scene itself, not just about the movie, but the scene itself. I think this graphic, this board is going to be filled with so many like modern classics from like the 70s on that it's going to be nice to kind of get something that's a little older in representation because slashers weren't really a thing or a popularized thing back then, and Psycho is the closest thing to a slasher of the classic era that you can get. I know it's not necessarily a slasher in conventional modern types, but it is a slasher nonetheless. This is a slashing for sure. I mean, the famous knife, the music, it's just the perfect scene. There are other death scenes that like I had on my list that I wanted to pick because I know they're like cool niche picks, but I'm like, if I have the chance to get the most iconic one, I'll take that. And the honorable mentions is where I'll bring up all my fun, wacky sequel ones. Every kill I had was from like a very obscure horror sequel, except for this one. And I was like, you know what? It's on the board. No one's taken it, and I don't know if I would have gotten it in round two. Maybe because I'm fourth, so maybe I would have gotten it on the wraparound. But on the second wraparound, I don't know if I would have gotten it. So I'm happy to take Psycho there, especially because I don't know how much more this movie is going to be represented in this draft as well. So, any thoughts on the Psycho?
Yeah, Dill, that's a fantastic pick. I love that you're representing classics. I mean, you got Singing in the Rain poster right behind you. Of course you were going to do that. It actually, I didn't think about that one for some reason, and now I'm ashamed of myself.
Nah, it's okay. I mean, there's so many to pick from too. It's
It's number one on my list. It was going to be my second round pick.
Okay, good.
Because it's so iconic. Because you're absolutely right. It's not just iconic as a slasher movie. It's not iconic from a horror movie. It is iconic in film. That scene. It also is historic because it's the first time a flushing toilet has ever been seen in a movie. Is during that scene.
Wow.
You didn't know that?
But it's so iconic and so iconic with seeing so little. Like it's everything is about the atmosphere and the situation and there's so much mystery in it because you don't exactly know what's going on at that moment. Also, the movie presents Janet Leigh as the that's Janet Leigh, right? Yeah, Janet Leigh as the main character of this movie, and then suddenly she's been killed.
And that's Laurie Strode's mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
wow.
yes, Jamie Lee Curtis's mom. Yes. Final girls. Actually, Janet Leigh is not a final girl here. She's the first death. But yeah, it's so iconic and so such a wonderful scene. I'm angry because it was my next pick.
And that score is also iconic during that.
So good.
Yes.
So good.
Also, I can't believe I also didn't consider it. And it's such an iconic scene. Like it's in just through cultural osmosis, everyone knows that scene.
Right.
So, yeah.
Carrie has on her shirt an iconic horror movie score. But I would say this is the more iconic horror movie score, which is re.
Yeah.
That anytime anybody mimes killing someone, they do that. They do
that
that.
and like Jaws or
Jaws is the other thing. Yeah.
Well, and the nice thing about Jaws and Psycho, like that dun, dun, or the dun 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 dun, that's what everyone thinks of. But it's the other scores too. It's like that da 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 da, and then Psycho, it's like that do 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 do. It's almost like the ET kind of whimsical, like it just reminds you of like a bike ride through a forest where the leaves are all on the and it's nighttime and you're afraid, you're rushing home, it's got the vibes, even though it's black and white. I love it so much. So Chad, you do have the fifth pick here in round one. You'll get two in a row. So your first choice of three categories, or you can pick that scene, you can pick a fourth final girl. It's all up to you, Chad. You have the whole world in your hands.
Yeah. Okay. So I have to go sequel here. I don't have a plethora of them, and then like two of them are from the same franchise. And I know some. Don't worry, Matt. I'm not picking yours. I know what you want. And I have to go with one of my favorites. I think it's the greatest horror sequel ever made, and it kind of or rivals the original for me as well. And I got to take it. It's Scream 2.
I should have known that was going to
Okay.
be yours. Yeah.
Yeah. Scream 2 for me is just, I just saw it in the theaters. I bought the Steelbook. Had a great time doing it. I showed some, other people who hadn't seen it before it in the theaters. I took them to see it, and it was just such a great time. I love the meta commentary on sequels in general and horror sequels. And just everything that comes with it. There is a death. I don't want to spoil it, but there is a death in this movie that could end up, being picked at some point that everybody was like pissed off about, but I think is kind of brilliant. And yeah, there's just like the killers are in this are fantastic. I also don't want to mention them just in case they get picked. I already said they. Sorry, but that's a Scream thing. So, anyways, this is one of my favorites. I don't want to go on too long with it because I probably could, but we are going to do a Scream ranking over on my channel at some point, so I'll talk about it more there.
Yeah, it's a great sequel. Especially, I love how they theaters, and I have to ask, how is watching that first scene in a movie theater, does it make it scarier? Because like I couldn't even watch that at home. It's haunting because I'm always thinking in the movie theater, because like I live in New York City, so like you have all kinds of individuals strolling into a movie theater without tickets, and you always have to be alert, especially late at night. So like, man,
That's
how was that?
scarier, but there, because in that scene, there's so many people doing like this. I was trying to do that with like my friends and stuff, like so yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I would never go to a midnight horror movie with you, Chad, because I'd be too scared. Chris, Matt, any thoughts on Scream 2?
I love Scream 2 is great. The first one is, I think, the better one for me, but this one's so close. Those first two, the consistency is so good in those first two movies. Like they are so close. Plus, you get Sarah Michelle Gellar running from someone
DC
who's
Cooper.
trying to kill her, rather than what you normally see, which is her killing the bad thing. So that's also fun.
No, it's a solid choice. Also, a weird cast, like Portia de Rossi is in it.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere. And I think not Rebecca Gayheart, Heather Graham.
No,
or is it Rebecca Gayheart?
It's both of them.
Both? Okay, I was like,
is Rebecca Gayheart, because she's in Urban Legend? She's in both?
Mm-hmm.
So Rebecca Gayheart is Portia de Rossi's sorority friend.
Oh, okay.
And Heather Graham plays Casey Becker in
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. Okay,
Okay.
so that's funny because there's like a lot of crossover on actors, because Sarah Michelle Gellar is in both this and
I Know What You Did.
I Know What You Did Last
Yeah.
Summer. So yeah, lots of cast crossover back then.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I had Scream 4 as like my Scream pick if I got around to it.
That's why I picked mine.
Yeah, because I was going to, because I think it's just so underrated, because everyone talks about it, as they should. The first two are amazing, but like Scream 4, I just really like, because also it's like it's Wes Craven's last, so like there's also a sentimentality to that. So I would have picked Scream 4, but Scream 2 is amazing. Like I'm glad you picked it. I'm glad it's in that first round, because of all the horror sequels, I think Scream has some of the best horror sequels, especially in consistency. Like I think you could have picked any of the Scream sequels, even the newest one, even the third one, and it would have been a worthy pick. So the same can't be said for pretty much any other franchise.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say, is that there's not a bad movie in that. There's ones that are not as good as the first two, but there's not a bad movie in that franchise. So yeah, it's a plethora, and that's a good choice. You made a good choice.
So I'm interested to see now, Chad, what you do with your next pick. Are you going to go into one of the categories we've dipped in before? Are you going to go for another new category? A whole category hasn't been touched.
I understand. I'm still going to go Final Girl, just because there's one left on there that I think is just as iconic as the others. I had a list of like ones that have come from like kind of like lesser talked about ones, and I'm like, maybe I should do some more representation and stuff like that. But I'm like, I need to have a really iconic one on my list, because if I'm going to like compete with Sydney, Lori, and Nancy, I got to come up with somebody that's phenomenal. Go on Ellen Ripley.
Good.
Alien.
That is number 6 on my list because I thought people would not accept it.
She was number 1 on my list, and then I realized that this was just slasher, so I took her off.
That's a slasher movie, in my
I
opinion.
assumed Chad was going to veto it if I tried to say that Alien is a slasher, which it is.
Yeah.
And so I moved it down my list to the bottom.
Surprise!
So wait, I have a question because I'm not gonna veto it, but I just want to ask, like, because I'm just not as much of an expert as y'all. Is a slasher, because when I looked up slasher, it said like it's like, you know, you're killing people as you go along. There's a body count. There's usually a final person standing, and the killer is always human. Is that why some people don't
Well,
consider Alien a
Michael Myers is not human. He is.
Yeah, I wouldn't say
Right,
they're
okay.
always human.
Okay, no, I
A lot of times
was
they
just,
are.
I was just telling you what the internet
Yeah.
said. So I like the pick. I think she's a great final girl, especially because, you know, like, that is such an iconic horror movie. Just I didn't know
I'll
if
leave it up to the
it's
panel.
considered slasher or not.
No,
I
I
won't
stand
veto
it.
it because if Chris and Carrie and you, Chad, and Matt all say it's a slasher, then I'm totally down for it, because I think if that's the case, this would probably be my number 1 final girl, because like this is an awesome pick.
It's a great pick.
Yeah.
All right.
Honestly, that would have been my number 2. So,
Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and talk about her then.
Yeah, go for it.
Alien, I understand, is kind of a unconventional slasher, but I believe it is. And it came out right after Halloween. It's just one of the greatest films ever made. A lot of people might say Aliens is better. I'm more in the Alien camp, but I think Aliens is great anyways. And it's just because of that horror slasher thing. And one of the best things that this movie does is they save the cat. Because I'm always just worried that Jonesy's not going to survive, and he does, and it just brings me so much joy. And she's just kind of the most badass final girl, you know, next to like Sydney. And I wouldn't say Laurie's badass like up front. You know, Nancy's kind of yeah. So I would rank her like really high up in badassery. You know, she's carrying a gun. You know, she's, but then even when she defeats him, she doesn't have the gun. So, you know, it's just, you know, she's a survivor. And, you know, and the second one, she goes on to not take care of a cat, but a kid. So there you go.
if we're gonna include the sequels, which I don't think the rest of them are slashers, I think only the first one's a slasher. But if we're gonna include the sequels in terms of badassery, Ellen Ripley is head and shoulders above the rest of them. Like there's no question about how badass she is. And even in this movie, Alien is I said Halloween is my favorite horror movie. Alien is my second favorite horror movie of all time. And I do think it's a horror movie. I don't think the second I put it above the second one. It's actually a larger margin than a lot of people give it, because I think I like the second one as an action movie, but it just doesn't have the same thing. Second one's an action movie, third one's sci-fi, and then they just go off the rails in a weirdness. Yeah, it's I love this movie. I love that choice. She's such a badass. Jonesy is the coolest name for a cat.
Yes.
Cool. So moving on now to pick 2 of round 2. Yeah, I mean, there's 2 categories that haven't been touched yet, villain and prop. So I might as well take one. I'm gonna go prop, because I think there's one prop for me that is like the best prop. Like I look at it and I'm like, that is, you know, like iconic. You know, it's not like anything else. Like it's not. I'll just say it right now. It's the Chucky doll. I'm taking the Chucky doll.
Oh.
So
I
like,
didn't think of that.
I had
I didn't
questions
think of that
about
either.
that.
No,
yeah,
that's,
I'm willing out the vetoes or the debates, but like let's hear it. Yeah, Chris, what do you think?
Oh, I literally thought, oh, I could use that as a prop. But then I was just like, well, yeah, but he's like a villain. But I was like, no, but the Chucky doll itself in that world is also still a
good guy
prop.
doll, yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of the horror comes from, because, you know, when you watch Child's Play, even for the first time, you know he's gonna come alive, and it's the waiting for him to come alive. It's the when's he finally, you know, break. And for a while, he is just a prop. He's just a doll, and then he turns into Chucky. So I'm taking the doll. I'm not taking
Okay, so yes.
also other
Chucky
good
doll.
guy dolls in the movies.
Yeah.
So should I say good guy doll?
Good guy doll is what I would say, because Chucky is the name of the person who is inside of him.
Yeah.
Because
so
it's Charles Ray, whatever his last name is.
Charles Lee Ray.
Charles Lee Ray, yes.
I'm taking the good guy doll as my prop.
That works.
Okay, so that's the specification, which is not going to show up on the graphic itself, but that specification is you were not talking about Chucky the murderer, you're talking about the doll, which I was not on board, and now I'm completely on board because you're absolutely right.
Well, and on the graphic, I'll put him in
dolls
the
are
box.
scary.
I'll put him in the box. I'll put the batteries in him. Like I will take the.
You got to leave the batteries out.
Because a lot of the weapons for a lot of these villains, I won't name them to avoid giving picks, but like you can find one in your kitchen. Like it doesn't, and I know there's an iconicness of it being that villain's prop, but it's like this one is solely like you see it is that movie, it is that franchise, and I think he's not my favorite villain, but like the prop is good enough amongst the other props. Whereas I wouldn't take him in another category, which you have to spoil a pick for that one because I just said the alternate. But yeah, I love it. I love the pick. I mean obviously it's my pick, but any thoughts on the doll?
The doll's a fantastic pick
Yeah.
because it is super iconic. Carrie's cousin has one in their bedroom.
No,
because they're like super. It used to scare the shit out of him, and then he was like, "No, now I love Chuck. I love Child's Play." It's not one of my favorite franchises, but it's definitely iconic and Brad Dourif for life.
Yeah.
Brad Dourif's awesome. It's a franchise that gets better the further away it gets from horror, in my opinion.
The show is really good. Like
that's what I heard, but I heard it's also pretty funny.
Yeah, it really is.
But yeah, I've already said really my thing. I think it's a good pick.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Carrie, you're up with your second pick, the third pick of round 2. Category still not touched. What are you gonna do?
Okay, so that's the killer villain category, right?
Yeah, you don't have to take it, but
No, I'm going to though.
Okay.
And maybe I don't need to because maybe I don't know. But I'm going to represent the ladies with this one and take Mrs. Voorhees.
Oh, that's not
Ooh.
what we're gonna go with. Interesting.
Cool.
This whole
good.
movie, you're thinking, some big strong man is obviously doing this killing, right? No, it's a middle-aged woman out for revenge for her son.
Mommy.
Maybe her revenge is extremely mistargeted because obviously those campers had nothing to do with her son's death, but she's batshit crazy and she pulls off some pretty awesome kills.
Oh yeah,
That's a great pick. That's iconic for sure, Carrie. Good job.
Wow. Oh yeah, that's great. I didn't even consider her. I
also didn't, and I'm kind of ashamed.
Yeah, that is.
It's perfect.
That's a great pick. The issue I think is that a lot of people are gonna be like, oh yeah. Because they're like, no, they're going to agree it's a good pick, but they're going to be like, oh, but the graphic is maybe not. But that's not the point. It's a really great pick. She has some really great kills. Isn't that the one where she doesn't she do the drill through the person's
Kevin Bacon,
through Kevin Bacon's throat?
Yeah,
it's such a good kill. But also, it's an iconic misdirect also because like even in Scream. That's the
question
that Casey gets wrong at the beginning of that movie. Yeah, it's a great pick.
And it set the trend also for like scary moms going forward because like it stems from Psycho and then it goes on to Friday the 13th. But like we see it again. Spoiler alert! In one of the movies already drafted, Chad. Like we see that trend continue.
That's who I thought you were gonna pick for a second.
I was close.
She's the ladies. Yeah, I love the pick. It's a great pick. Great pick. Wow.
Also, it's kind of the opposite of Psycho, where you thought it was the mom and then it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's the son, and then you thought it was the son, but it's the mom. Yeah.
Very cool. So Matt, what's gonna be your pick? You have the fourth pick of round 2. What are you gonna go?
I had one that I had in the chamber, and I was gonna do it. And then Freddy Krueger was still on the table when it got around to me. I didn't think in a million years that would be the case. Look, his movies are not my absolute favorite, although I will say that there's a consistency in those three. There's 3 great movies in that franchise where most franchises don't have that many great movies. But Friday the 13th is not my favorite of the slashers. He's not even really my favorite of the villains, except he's probably the most entertaining and one of the most iconic. And you just love to see him anytime he's on screen. It's a rare thing to enjoy seeing the killer on screen, and not just because you want to see him do the mayhem. You know, it's a
Mhm.
rare thing to just enjoy the presence of a killer on screen, and that's what you get with Freddy Krueger, and that's why I'm shocked and excited that I got Freddy Krueger in this round.
They really captured something special there when they found Robert Englund, the weird, nerdy looking guy who can it ends up being one of the creepiest motherfuckers on the planet. When he's in that makeup and doing his thing, they even tried to recast him for the remake, and it did not work at all. So, he is just so iconic. It's just one of those killers out there that's an actual character, and that's why he became such a, iconic, symbol in horror and movies, and they gave him his own show, and yeah, he's just the best.
I haven't seen the remake, but what I will say is that at that time, after Watchmen and Little Children, Jackie Earle Haley seemed like genius casting for
No
that
offense
role.
to him. I'm just,
It kind of
No,
did. 'Cause I
it
remember
seemed like genius
like-
casting. Like it doesn't seem like that should have gone wrong.
Yeah.
But
And it's not necessarily his fault though either. Like I don't think he's bad in the role. It's just like I don't think the script gives him a lot to be good at.
and it's just to prop up Robert Englund as saying no one else can really do that character.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, for
exactly.
sure. I agree with that. I can completely agree with that. And just terrifying to look at too. Just like something that literally embodies like nightmare. Like I'm a scaredy cat. I know, but like even the little pop figure is scary. They like give the little burns in the face and shit. Like that's scary.
Dylan, I love that you're that way because so many horror fans out there like wasn't even scary. I don't get scared easily. It's like, why are you even a horror fan then? Things should be scary.
It's fine to be scared. Like it's a good
That's the
feeling.
point.
Like a
That's the
roller
point,
coaster. Just
Yeah.
be afraid. No, but that was a good pick.
Yeah.
Fred Krueger. I was gonna call him Fred, but I didn't think I'd get him, and then I was so shocked that I got
He
him.
was
I
my
didn't call
number
him Fred.
3 technically, but could easily be number 1.
Yeah, he's my
Fred
number
Krueger.
1. So I knew it probably wasn't gonna get him, but I was like, you know what? That's a deeper category for me than not deaths, but I wanted that psycho scene, but like the props, I was like, the prop is a little shallower than the villain. So yeah, it's a great pick though. Chris, you got the final pick in round 2. What are you gonna go with?
I think I'm gonna go with my. This is a hard one. I'm gonna go with my death scene. I think, and I consider Us to be a slasher to some degree.
I think it is.
I mean,
Yeah,
okay.
I think it is. I would say yes.
So I'm gonna go with my death scene, which is the scene where the couple and their 2 daughters are killed by their doppelgangers. Because distinctly, I remember like being in the theater and we cut from the one family just over to them, and they're just having like a regular night. Like the couple, they're bickering back and forth. Elizabeth Moss like said she heard something outside, and they're just like doing this weird couples bickering.
Tim
And then
Heidecker.
then out of nowhere, they look upstairs on the railing, and their 2 daughters are just murdered by their doppelgangers, and they're also killed. Like that's when the movie shifted for me. So
Yeah.
it took a turn. Loved it. I don't know. It's just recounting that feeling of seeing that for the first time was just amazing.
That's a fantastic, like, kind of out of nowhere pick. I did not consider that at all, but I love that. And you even got like, the fuck the police, stuff.
Yes.
In there. Ophelia, call the police. Nope.
And then also just Tim Heidecker just being like funny during that scene. Like just the acting was done really well. Like the shock value, because at this point you don't think anyone else has a doppelganger. And then out of nowhere that happens, and you're like, "Oh, this is different." Okay.
Yeah.
Tim Heidecker's at his absolute best when he is not writing the material.
That's fair.
I really like that scene. I'm trying to remember it exactly. I feel like there is a holy shit moment in there where someone falls or something happens. I don't
Well,
remember.
the holy shit moment is when they cut up to the daughters standing upstairs and they immediately get killed.
That is a holy
Yeah.
shit. I feel like there's
Beautiful
like a moment, but I don't remember what it is. It doesn't matter. That's a great scene. I agree. That's kind of a shift in that movie where it goes from this mystery to a slasher. Like that's where it becomes a slasher is in that scene.
And that's where I felt like it definitely did that shift into slasher territory. Because before that, it's just like a weird, like
what's going on
tale
here?
of people, this one family having a double. like family, and it's just like, oh, that's kind of weird and creepy. And then out of nowhere, it's like, oh wait, everyone has a double, and they're out to like reclaim their spot or take what could be theirs in the above world.
I like the idea of also considering us a slasher because it was not on my list in any categories. But now that I'm thinking of it, like there's an iconic prop from it, there's an iconic villain, there's there could be a case made for a final girl in a sense. Like this is a cool movie that now I'm kind of rethinking my whole draft board. Because it is a slasher. It's like people getting killed off, but the villains are their tethered selves, which is very interesting.
But which one would be the final girl?
Exactly.
Well, you would have to argue it, I think.
I mean, I'm the only one who can take a final girl now, anyway, and I already have one in mind, so I'm not going to take her. But I would consider Lupita Nyong'o probably be the final girl as well, right?
I mean, which Lupita Nyong'o?
Yeah,
because there's a famous scene. I don't want to spoil it. There's a famous point in that movie where there is a question. So
yeah, for sure.
Oh, 100%. That's the best part of it.
Watch us. It's great.
I had to look it up. Good Vibrations was a song that's playing on the Amazon Echo, right? Yeah, like it's so good. Not Echo. What is it called?
Ophelia.
Ophelia. So good. Chris, you do get another pick now, though. So what would you like to pick from? You already got your death and your final girl. You got 3 other categories.
I'm gonna keep it in, I guess, just contemporary horror era right now. I'm gonna go with my villain, and I'm gonna do Pearl from X and Pearl. Specifically Pearl, though the movie Pearl.
No spoilers, please.
No spoilers.
No spoilers because I haven't seen that.
It's still fresh. It's within a year. We'll keep it.
Yes.
No.
Not gonna do any spoilers, but just like as a character, I can't help but love her as a villain. She's so good.
Yeah,
and also Mia Goth is just amazing.
Yeah, Chris, I saw this movie last night. It was on my list of because I'm working through horror A through Z, and it was my letter P, and I'm like, is it gonna still be in theaters? It was playing in one theater in New York City, a late night screening, 11 o'clock screening, packed house. Like it was packed, and I was impressed because it just, you can tell people had some of them had seen it before because they were going back for it. Like it's become a hit, at least in my town. Mia Goth is so good, and I haven't seen X yet. I'm actually, that's my letter X, so X, I'll be watching it next week.
Okay.
And I thought it'd be a cool experiment prequel. To watch Pearl first because Pearl came afterwards, but it is a prequel.
I would like to, honestly, I feel like I would love to experience it that way, watching Pearl first, then X,
because knowing what X is about too, Pearl, without spoiling it, you can see undertones of thematic stuff that would come in X. Assumedly, I haven't seen it yet, but you can see hints and glimmers of it, but it's not bogged down in it. But you can see the little shades of what is to come. And I love that. I love the period piece nature of it. I know you took the character, not the movie, but the movie itself, I think it's maybe the best horror film directed this year, not by Jordan Peele. But also, I think it's incredible. I think it's incredible.
Also, great to hear that when you went to go see it, it was a packed theater. Opposite story when my husband and I went to go see it, and we went to a matinee, middle of the day. So obviously, it was a weekday, it was a Friday or something. But we were the only ones in the theater, and it was a couple of weeks ago we went to go see it. But
because it really aids the atmosphere too, because it's one of those movies that the kills almost make you laugh, not because they're funny, but you kind of laugh because you're like, oh my god, what's going on, oh my god, laughing, the giddy laughter, which I love, and the characters are so good. But anyone else have thoughts on Pearl, the character? Because an amazing character.
I love Mia Goth. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. I haven't seen Pearl. I really liked X, but Mia Goth, as someone who did not know who she was before this year, has become a horror royalty for me. She is so good, and I've watched other things. I keep telling people about this, and people are gonna get tired of it. But there's a movie called Marrowbone on, I think it's on AMC Plus right now. It's got George McKay and Anna Taylor-Joy and Mia Goth. And the boy from Stranger Things, the older brother, Charlie, whatever his name is. They are in this. It's a drama horror movie, so it's mostly drama, but it's a ghost story happening. and it's very good. I had never heard anything about it. I just clicked on it because I liked all those people and was very happy with it. Everyone go watch it. Anyway, and it's kind of old. It's like been a few years ago. But Mia Goth this year has become like one of my absolute favorite people. And I'm very excited to see Pearl.
Yeah, I mean, just an incredible performance, like in a star-making turn as an actress, but also like creating just an iconic horror character. Like we're already getting a trilogy from this property within the
Right.
span of 2 years,
Like it's
and like
baked in
already,
as a trilogy.
yeah, like I feel like this is gonna be a character that like 10 years from now we're still talking about as like one of the iconic slasher villains. Like it may not be as esteemed as like Freddy Krueger that Matt just picked yet, but it could be, and that's pretty cool.
Very excited for you to see X, Dylan.
Ooh, I'm very excited too. I'll tell you next week. Next week, I'm hopefully going to get to the letter X. I mean, I will because that's on the schedule. But I'm at the letter Q, and I watched Q the Winged Serpent today.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah,
oh my god.
Yeah, gotta love it. Can't believe it's Criterion, but I kind of love it.
I had no idea it was Criterion. That's weird.
It's not Criterion, but it's on the Criterion channel. So,
oh, okay. I was like,
that's still cool that it's esteemed enough to be on it, even though you would never think at first glance. But Matt, your second pick in round, or the second pick in round 3, your third pick overall. You have your final girl and your villains. Now you can fill in the blanks with some props, deaths, and sequels. What do you want?
I'm going to go with my sequel just so that
Of course.
the other one in this franchise isn't taken, and thereby eliminating this for me. And I'm going to go with A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors.
That was what I thought your number one was.
that was on
I knew that's
my
what you
list. I
probably
should have
thought
gone
it
for
was.
it.
But and honestly, I didn't think that anybody was going to pick this. I thought maybe more people would maybe go with New Nightmare, but I wanted to get this off the table just so I did not lose it. But it is, to me, it's my favorite Nightmare. It's my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie, even more than the original. It does this shift that makes it that keeps it fresh. I mean, honestly, if you think about it, Nightmare on Elm Street did that most of the time, and the second one is a shift from the first one, and then the third one is a shift from those. Like it does that anyway, but it does this shift into like this ensemble, almost like horror action comedy type movie that I don't know. I just really love it. And New Mutants was the sequel to Dream Warriors we never got, and that's why I like that movie so much.
That way. Amazing.
Some would say the sequel no one wanted, but I agree. I like.
I think the sequel no one wanted was the fourth one, which is where they kill off the remaining people that were left from Dream Warriors at the very beginning, and then it's a bad movie after that.
R.I.P. Kincaid. Great movie. I think that's the deepest franchise in terms of just the most good movies to pick from next to Scream. Like I think Scream and then Nightmare, it's like those have the best sequels, and Nightmare, like you said, New Nightmare was like my number 2 on the list. So Chad took Scream, you took Nightmare from me, so I gotta dive into another franchise.
I had New Nightmare and Dream Warriors on my list as well. I knew Matt really wanted Dream Warriors, but there was the only way I was gonna pick one of those is if a Scream movie had gotten taken before I was able to pick. So, but
I've forgotten about Scream 2, and I thought you were about to do New Nightmare earlier, and that's why I was so excited that you went with Scream 2.
And I wanted to let you have that one if possible, because I know you love it. But it's fantastic, and probably not my number one, but definitely up there for sure. Such a fantastic movie by Chuck Russell. What did Chuck Russell do recently that was amazing?
I don't know if it was
pause that.
We just watched
that recently. Yeah, I'll look it up.
Look it up. If someone's we air this live on the next day on YouTube. So if anyone's watching and knows in the chat and wants to try to get it before Chad's phone does, let us know.
1998.
Cool.
Oh, really?
A great,
fantastic movie
of an already great movie. Well, interesting movie. All right, Carrie, you're the third pick of round 3. What would you like? You already got your final girl and your villain.
I'm going to go with my death scene.
Ooh, okay.
Nice.
I'm going to take it.
I'm probably going to take it. I don't know. It might be your top one, Chad. So I'm sorry.
Probably.
But it's going to be Casey Becker in
Scream. That was my number one.
Absolute iconic
kill. Do this.
And
Good job.
it does something somewhat similar to Psycho, but like on a more on a quicker time scale. But you think, or at least I think, some of the marketing seemed to indicate that Drew Barrymore was going to be a co-lead in this movie, and she's killed off in the first scene. And I don't know. I just think the entire sequence is really phenomenal. Just the visuals of it, the tragedy of it. I love this one.
Yeah, that's obviously, iconic. And then they parody it in my movie that I picked, my sequel. And it's just, I love the fact that Drew Barrymore didn't want to be the lead of that movie. She wanted to be the fake out character that, dies and like pulls the rug from under everybody. And they're like, what? I thought that was our main character. No. And she's fantastic in it.
Yeah, it's so effective. Like
it is. All right, I'm 38 years old, so let me tell you young pups a thing.
Yeah.
Is that because I was a teenager when this came out? I was the target audience for this movie. Now, not all of the marketing, but the early marketing was strictly that scene, like up until the death, like at the end. So the she's cooking popcorn, she gets a call, they're having a conversation. It cuts away when he turns, and when he turns into like on the phone where he starts yelling at her or whatever. It kind of cuts to that, but that marketing did make it seem like Drew Barrymore was going to be a huge part of this movie. The poster was literally, because you see the poster now where it's got her.
She's huge on the poster.
Let me tell you, the poster, because right now it's her and all of the cast. The poster in the theater was not her and all the cast; it was her,
just her.
Wow.
Yeah,
it was Drew Barrymore's face on the poster.
Yeah,
just her face, just the eyes, like Drew Barrymore.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And that's what's so funny about the new one too, because like Jenna Ortega has a similar scene, and they showed a lot of that in the marketing, and people were like, they're just gonna kill her off in the first scene again. But then they subvert your expectations there by not killing her off and making her survivor. But I like how Scream continues to even pull that joke, like it's Scream 4. Like you got your A-listers in the first scene, and then Anna Paquin's dead, and it's like, what? It's like, I love how Scream keeps getting you. It's like
fictional.
We should have learned by now. And then when we finally think we're in on its trick, it goes, Jenna Ortega, no, she's staying, and you're like, what? Oh,
yeah.
So good.
So the psycho shower scene was my number one. Casey's death was number 2 for me. So it's a good.
It was my number 1. Yeah, good pick, dude.
Wow. All right.
Iconic.
So moving on to my pick, I cannot believe that Michael Myers has lasted this long in the draft. He's going to be my villain. I'm taking him. I mean, some people might think it's like a bad pick now because they're like, oh, the sequels ruined him and stuff. He's just a gimmick. He's just a joke.
And he's not Michael Myers. He's the Shape. Sorry.
All right, the shape. But I'm going to say Michael Myers because that's what people, that's the pop figure box said Michael Myers. No, I know. But, it's one of those things where, the sequels, as much as you may dislike them, the same can be said for Freddy. The same can be said for other horror villains we haven't drafted yet. Like, the more movies, the more room for error. But we got to remember that first movie and how good it was. And I still think he's, even if they don't necessarily utilize him to the most potential in later films, he's still a scary presence. Like, it's still a scary, horrifying villain. And the fact that, it's a William Shatner mask, yet it's that scary. Like, that's just telling of how effectively they convey the fear of the Shape in that film. That that a William Shatner mask can make people like shrivel up and get goosebumps. Like that's power right there, John Carpenter. Well done. I wanted to get some Halloween representation on my board because that's my favorite horror movie, the original horror Halloween. So I'm very happy that I got that on there. Yeah, Michael Myers. I mean, it's not much else to say. Yeah.
It's a good thing you did because that was my number 1. I would have said,
that was your number 1?
That was my number 1 villain. I would have said, throw that on there and call it the Shape. You put Michael Myers in parentheses.
I'll put now you're backtracking.
Chad, I'll do it for you, Chad. I'll put both on the graphic.
Hey, you do whatever you want. It's your pick. But
for you, for me.
because the sequels are what they are, but that original film, just him being that dehumanized character, is just so brilliant, and that's just why it's Matt's favorite number 1 film. It's why it's pretty much mine too, or up there at least for me. And it's just such an iconic villain, and the greatest I think any slasher's ever seen for me. So yeah.
Yeah, it's not my number one. Second, my number two, but Matt took Freddy, so I went with my number one.
He-
Or my
Just
number
his
one.
lurking, it's very scary. And
Yeah.
again, his
Yes.
first appearance, he's amazing. Also, he's a jokester. Like that one time he put the sheet over his head.
Yeah.
And
Ah,
like,
silly dog.
why did he do that?
Little rascal.
So this is we're actually flip flopped here, Dill, because my number one is Michael, but I chose Freddy in a rare for me strategic move. Usually I play only from the heart, but I already had Lori, and so I wanted to go with
I
something good on the.
I respect
wanted
Because
to go with
if you
something
have
good on
Halloween
the-
haters, then having
Yeah.
both of them could
Yeah,
hurt
exactly.
you.
That's
But
true.
if you have Nightmare haters, you just took a Nightmare sequel and Freddy. So
So Michael is my favorite.
Through the
Michael
hate.
Myers, the Shape. He is my favorite horror villain, of course, because he's the villain in my favorite horror movie. But I am actually a big fan of that entire franchise. For me, there's not one I dislike watching,
Ooh,
except
nice.
maybe Halloween Kills. It's hard for me.
Evil Dead
I-
Night, Matt.
we
I
can bring it up
really like the new one. I know a lot of people don't, and this may get me. lose
I
me
do
some
too,
votes,
and we know
but-
Dylan does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we liked it.
Halloween Ends felt the most like the original that they've ever done in a sequel, and which is interesting because it's such a departure from the franchise itself, really. But I really liked that movie. I think Michael is scary, even though he kind of, and not to spoil anything, but his character kind of takes a backseat in this movie. The scary thing about Michael for me is because they all wear masks. All of the most of the iconic villains wear masks. The scary thing about Michael is that his mask has an expression, and that makes whatever he is thinking even harder to know. I think
Yeah.
It's
that's
best
why
you
when
can't
he's
see the
looking at
eyes.
something and you can see the expression on his mask's face, but you know that that's probably not what he thinks. That's what's always scary, is that he'll stand there and he'll look at something and he'll maybe even cock his head.
Yeah.
But
Oh God, I hate that.
yeah. But I think the fact that his mask has its own expression and not a cartoonish expression like you get with Ghostface and like I don't know, something else that might have
Yeah.
a bigger expression.
Don't name more picks, Matt.
Oh, sorry. Well, yeah, sorry.
Kidding.
I think that there's something about that makes that mask, that makes his mannerisms even creepier, and that's very interesting. And I love him, and that's a great pick.
All right, Chad, you're getting two back to back. So, what do you want? You already got your final girl in your sequel.
Okay.
Contemplating.
How many more villain picks are there?
Matt and Carrie have taken, and Chris have all taken their villains. So, and me. Oh, you're the only one who hasn't taken a villain, so you can save him.
Then I'll chill. Okay.
Him or-
All right. Then I'll
Or
go.
them.
All right. I'll go. Wait, you could pick multiples?
Well, I
I
think
would
there's one
say-
exception. We'll talk when we get there. If
All
we
right.
get
Cool,
there.
cool, cool.
Yeah.
I'll,
I would
I'll
say
wait.
yes.
Okay. All right, then. I'm gonna go. This is interesting. I'm gonna go with my. Wait, I got
You have to
Okay.
take a prop, a villain, and a death scene.
in a death scene. Correct. Okay. I'm gonna go with. Shit. Actually,
It's tough.
It's an embarrassment of riches.
It really is, especially
Okay.
these categories. They're so deep.
yeah. I'm gonna go with first. Screw it. I'll go with my death scene.
Cool.
And I'm gonna go with. Sorry. This is very
and it's
hard
tough because he's got to do another pick after this. So
there's
Yeah, I know.
there's a couple that I was between, but I'm gonna go with the entire sequence that opens the iconic Halloween 1978, the 7-minute
Okay.
tracking shot
Okay.
that follows the little boy Michael, who's wearing a clown suit, and he walks, throughout the house. His sister has sex with her boyfriend. It's very, very quick.
Judith is her
and
name,
then
right?
Judith
Yes.
Myers, yes. And after he leaves, the boyfriend, Michael walks up the stairs slowly, picks up a clown mask, puts it on, and then you get to kind of see the view of him putting on a mask from behind his eye. Everything is from his point of view. And he, I think he gets the knife first before he puts on the mask, but he goes and he stabs her. He's looking at his hand. It's almost like it was destiny to happen. It's almost like he's kind of a machine in a way. And it's on automatic. That's the only time in the whole movie anybody ever says Michael. It's because Judith is like, Michael. And then he kills her to death. And then he walks downstairs and he's outside. And his parents come home and they're just like, and then it's kind of like an artwork painting of them just kind of standing there, not knowing what to do and kind of frozen. And he's just a little boy with a bloody knife. Well, I don't even know if there's blood on it, or maybe he even dropped the knife. I can't remember if he's holding it, but he's just in a clown outfit. And that is who would become the Shape at some point. And that is my scene. I don't think this scene's ever been topped. Even though I think Casey Becker comes close.
Yeah, it's iconic, especially just the actual craft itself, like the POV shot, the tracking shot. It's just very, very well done. It's not just the kill; it's the crafting and the presentation of it that makes it amazing. Yeah.
This is a brilliant. I could say all kinds of nice things about Halloween 1978 because, again, I love it. But you touch on something interesting that I always notice, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about, which is when he looks at the knife. Because that almost makes it feel like you said, like automatic, like he's like almost as though he is doing it without his own permission. And I love that kind of sets a tone for who he is, which is just someone who's doing this. And I don't know, I really love that. Like there's an evil that's doing this, and it may not be that little boy.
He's just the conduit.
Which is why the Shape is an appropriate. I always call him Michael Myers, but the Shape is an appropriate name for him because it's almost like there is something killing him, and it might not be Michael Myers, even though it is Michael Myers.
And even in
the Thorn curse.
Yeah.
Even in the screenplay for Halloween, he's never really referred to as Michael. It's always the Shape, and it's everything, even the mask, everything is just a way of dehumanizing him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's a great scene. It was on my list. Also, a tracking shot from a more recent Halloween movie.
2018
was also really great and was on my list. But yeah, this is a great iconic scene. It's so good and really sets the tone for a perfect horror film. So there we are.
All right, Chad, you gotta agonize over another one here. What is gonna be either your prop or your villain?
I gotta go prop here because my villain will be safe. And I only have 3 written down, 3 props.
Cool.
And well, it kind of feels a little weird because I'm gonna go with something from the same movie, aka franchise, but really this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go with the mask, the Shape's mask,
the Captain Kirk mask.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that counts. I mean, he does use it. Like he you do see it
and
in most,
throughout the franchise, even in like 2018, it's something that they the podcasters show it to him, and they're trying to get a reaction at him, trying to like coerce him or something. And so it's used throughout the franchise, as a prop, but mostly to wear. But the only reason I'm going for this is just because I thought about a lot of different weapons. I'm not going to name any because other people haven't chosen props yet, but there's a couple other things I really wanted to have, but this one, I don't know, it's just like the most iconic mask out there. It is the Shape, like I said, it's the thing that one of the things that helps dehumanize him, and it's one of the weirdly like divisive things about the whole thing, and it's one thing that shows just why how Halloween 1978 can never be truly replicated, because that mask can never be truly replicated. They did this like weird, cheap process of taking a very cheap Captain Kirk mask and making it the thing that you see in the movie. And then even 3 years later in Halloween 2, you know why it looks so shitty is because I think Deborah Hill had it like in her just office or something, and it just kind of warped a little bit, but it was like the one. And because I guess for some reason they couldn't do the same process to just get that same mask, there's only a few of them where it really looks fantastic, but none of them compared to the original. And it's just it looks so creepy and cheap. It's almost like he could have gotten it from some weird hardware store that sells masks like that. And yeah, no, it's just iconic and fantastic. And, you know, I could sit here and talk about it for a lot longer, but I won't.
Yeah,
because then they like just cut out the eye holes a little bit bigger and then like shaved the sideburns on it to like make it just unsettling. Like
I think they warped it somehow too, because it was white originally.
Well, yeah.
Right. I've already spoken at length about this mask and why it's creepy and awesome. So I'm just gonna say it's a great pick.
Another fun fact is they were toying with going with some sort of like clown mask or something like that. Could you imagine how iconic it probably wouldn't have been if they made
it would just be classic and silly. Just
Yeah. This is a great pick. I actually have a couple masks on my list because I think there are a few that count as props because they set something apart. But this is definitely, I mean, it's one of the most iconic. I've already talked about why it's scary. It's great.
Yeah. All right, I'll continue right along with pick 2 of round 4. This is tough because now I'm down to my final girl you all have chosen, so I'm going to take her in the last round. But I guess I got to go with my sequel now, and you've taken Scream and Nightmare from me. See, I'm not going to go with the franchise I like the most or the movie I like the most, because if I pick this one if I pick my favorite Halloween sequel, it's not going to play well on the graphic. People aren't going to like it.
It's not.
It's too new. It's too new for people to fully embrace it. I'm not going to spoil the pick, but so I'm going to go with something that's only a year old, but has enough time to kind of like accept it as like a great sequel. I wanted some Jordan Peele representation on the board. I'm going Candyman 2021. It is the fourth Candyman film. Listen, this is a shallow category for me. I could have just gone with one of like the Scream or Nightmare movies first or second round, but I was really passionate about my prop Chucky doll pick and my Psycho shower scene, so I said, you know what, I'll let it slide. It was this, and there was another franchise where I was like, if I get something here, I'll be fine with it. But like, I'm fine with Candyman. I'm happy with it. I think there's really great social commentary below the surface. I think the performances, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II and Tiona Paris are so good. Tony Todd's back, amazing. I just love the way they're kind of, you know, shaping it for a new generation, but keeping to the, you know, honoring the old origins of the story and the kind of style and aesthetic. And I love the makeup. I mean, the makeup is some of the most underrated makeup, you know, like the little kind of like insect bee sting type makeup stuff. I'm surprised it didn't get any consideration for makeup. On my Pickle Awards, I gave it the award for best makeup. I think it's incredible in this film, and no one talks about it enough. And I love a practical body horror, and I know a lot of slasher and body horror don't necessarily cross over a ton, but this one does. So I like that it is multiple different kinds of horror, not just slasher. It's got, you know, your social commentary horror, your body horror, all that jazz, and great performances. It's still new, but I feel like it's been around enough to where like we can all say, yeah, no, that's like probably the best Candyman sequel, or at least my favorite.
That was my number one pick.
Really?
Nice.
I'm so sorry, Chris. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. Like, I respect the
short, and you know way more horror sequels than I do, so I feel like you'll be just fine. But
1,000%.
Yeah,
I love
Chris. Yeah, tell me about it. Oh,
sorry,
Chad.
No,
Chad or Chris. Chris, it was going to be your pick, so just.
Kind of just like you were saying, I loved like the villain in that, just not just being more of an idea or more of a response to Black trauma. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The setting was really good. I just loved everything about it, to be honest. The music, loved it. I can't say too many nice things about this movie.
Great.
I Yeah, I just wanted to say that like I love this movie. I really need to rewatch it. I've only seen it once, but like, I feel like you have a really important movie when the social commentary is probably the biggest reason why people are divisive on it. If they don't like it, I'm like, there's probably something going on in your head that makes you not like it other than the movie itself. And
Perhaps.
I really think this does such a fantastic thing from the original Candyman to this one. This one, I think, really hits a lot harder on the social commentary. We don't really have time to get into it, but yeah, I really love that aspect of it.
Yeah.
I actually just saw this within the last 2 months for the first time.
Oh, cool.
As part of my spooky season watching. Because for me, spooky season starts on my sister's birthday and ends on Halloween, so which is August 30th. So there we are. So I just watched it within the last 2 months for my spooky season watch for the first time, and I really liked it. The thing that I loved the most, because I love the social commentary, what I loved is that it expanded the Candyman lore to be like, to basically say this is a lineage of basically vengeance spirits of Black trauma. Like I really liked the way that they handled that. I thought the imagery was wonderful. The performances were great. Yeah, I really like this movie. My wife, who can't handle horror movies, she doesn't watch them. She's a nurse for children. She says she sees too many bad things in real life to watch horror movies. So she doesn't really that. She kind of makes fun of me sometimes watching. The other day, she was like, "I saw someone talking about Candyman." So I got to
Matt,
tell her all.
I think your mic might be going in and out. It got a little disconnected there.
Can you hear me right now?
Yes.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So my wife said somebody told me about Candyman, and so I got to tell her all about the first one and the new one, and tell her the whole lore, and she was interested, which made me very happy. That doesn't really matter. It just made me happy that I got to tell her all about it.
Cool. Yeah. Carrie, you said this was like your third pick or whatever?
Yeah, this was my third pick. And I think in addition to what everyone else has said, this had my favorite kill of last year. The art critic kill that you just kind of see it from her apartment. Like
she was on my list of kills, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Because again, how like you were saying, how it's shot, like it pulls back and you just see her attack.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
I don't think you actually see Candyman. I think it's all just invisible and like.
Yeah, that's so cool. I agree. Yeah.
Carrie, you're on the clock now for your pick as well. So you have your prop remaining, and I believe your sequel.
So I'll go with my sequel. My top three were all picked, but that's fine. I'm going to go with my favorite Halloween sequel, and that is H2O.
Yes, that's what I thought you were going to do.
Cool.
I think this one especially, and maybe part of it's because if you watch them in order, 2 and 3 are fine. 4 through 6, and 4 is actually not bad either, but 4 through 6, it is a rough start, and then you get a breath of fresh air with like an actual understandable plot, and like it's
understandable. That's her bar. It's got to have an understandable plot.
I don't know. I think this is great. I think it does a lot of what David Gordon Green kind of tried to do in his new trilogy. It did it like the Laurie's trauma in this movie. I think is handled just a lot better, and in my mind a little more realistically. But I think she in H2O stays a bit more true to her character from the original Halloween. I think there are some great kills in this movie. Michael is still pretty badass in this movie. I don't know, but I'm not going to go on forever about it. But
I've never seen it, so I'm interested to look into it now. Yeah,
it's great. This is my second favorite Halloween movie, so it is my favorite sequel as well. I actually really like the third Halloween, which is not Michael Myers related at all. Although Jamie Lee Curtis does do the voice of the announcer in the movie, like that announces things. Anyway, but this Halloween H2O is my favorite Halloween sequel as well. And part of it is, like I said, 38 came out when I was a teenager. I was the target audience anyway. But this was the first time they said some of these sequels don't count, and then
Yes.
said this is a sequel to this specific movie, which is a sequel to to Halloween 2. So Halloween 1, 2, and then H2O is this specific series. I have said I like all of the Halloween movies. I even like 4 through 6, but next year for Halloween Framerec, I think we're going to do 4 through 6 as a trilogy for Framerec, because
Thanks,
because
Matt.
even though I really like them, I think we should do those anyway. Not the point.
That sounds fun.
I think this is a great pick. I think that I really like this movie, and you're absolutely right. It does feel like the more natural progression of that character than what came later.
Cool. And Matt,
Yeah.
what came later? Oh yeah, go ahead, Chad. I was just gonna segue into Matt's try to be funny.
Oh yeah, no, I
Some
just
weird
wanted to
quip.
quickly say that I mirror everything that Carrie and Matt said. That is definitely everything they said. Yeah, perfect. I also agree that as soon as I saw that, I think I had seen 2018 first, or maybe second. I can't remember, but I was sitting there like, I don't like this crazy yelly Laurie Strode. I don't like how
because I think we watched this. We watched them all
Okay.
leading up to 18.
Well, I also saw 2018 in the theaters. Anyways, and I just love, exactly how it plays out as like an actual movie that a lot of these don't normally really. And I also love that it introduces Josh Hartnett. That's all I want to say.
So Matt, your next pick, you need a prop and you need a death scene. What would you like?
I am gonna go with. I think my death scene's safe. I literally have.
You're also
3.
the only one who needs to pick a death scene. So you're.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. I have 3 written down, and one of them's still there. So there we are. So I think I'm gonna go with my prop, which is going to be. And again, I'm kind of surprised that this didn't go early, because I expected it to. But I'm gonna go with Freddy's glove.
That was on my list. Yeah, great.
Because it's so versatile. It's so good at killing things. It's scary. It changes. Sometimes it has hypodermic needles on it. Sometimes it's knives. It's just a great weapon, and it's scary, and I really love it.
Yeah,
I love how in is it the original Nightmare? It's one of them. The intro is him making it, and it's really cool.
It's the original. Like you see him crafting it, and then like he slashes through like a tarp or something. Yeah,
it's just how he wields it too. It's just so cool.
It's iconic. You're very Nightmare heavy, Matt, on your board.
I know.
You got 3 Nightmare picks in a row, but it's
love
fine.
it, though.
It's
love
great.
It.
It's an iconic character, iconic sequel, iconic.
I don't want to spoil anything, but it's not going to stop there.
It was that was my number 3, but they were all kind of like number 1s. And I won't spoil what my other one is because.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't pick it. I guess because I was like, there's not going to be as much Chucky representation as there will be Nightmare, so I was like, I'll go with the good guy.
That's also iconic though, Dill. That was a good pick.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if I took it too soon at round 2, or if it would have gotten around to me. But it's okay. Chris, what is going to be your penultimate pick? You get 2 in a row. You're going to round out your draft board now. You've already picked your death, your final girl, and your killer. So now you get a sequel and or a prop.
I'm gonna go with my sequel, and this is just me, straight, just from the heart. Texas Chainsaw Massacre: Next Generation.
Ooh, okay.
When
the
Texas Chainsaw representation?
The one with McConaughey and Renee Zellweger.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
I have never seen that, but I intend to.
Tell us about it.
It's bad. And I'm a fan of like a good bad movie, but this one, the fact that you have these 2 powerhouses like in this random movie, and McConaughey is like the bad guy basically. Leatherface is there for a little, like he is there and he's doing kills, but it's really just about like McConaughey being kind of crazy. Also, they throw in a plot that like the reason why Leatherface kills people, or why this family kills people, is because they're contracted by the government to do so, to like instill fear into people. Like it's a mess of a movie, but
I can't wait to watch that. That looks fun.
Yeah,
Spoilers.
I'm
Check it out, though.
excited because I love a bad movie. That's why we have Frame Rec, and that's why you're going to be on Frame Rec this month. But I'm excited to watch it. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
Spoiler
Yeah.
for Halloween Ends.
Oh, spoiler!
Everyone.
Come back in like 30 seconds, people.
Spoiler.
Yes.
Well, has everyone here seen it?
Oh, I've
I
seen
have,
it,
yeah. It's our viewers that
His pick sounds a lot like Halloween Ends. He was like, Leatherface is barely in it.
True. Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, I can't say if it's a great pick or not. It's a great pick because it's a you pick, Chris. It's very you.
Thank you.
I'm
Yeah,
very
like-
happy you picked it.
I don't know. Like, it's just such a weird, random movie. But again, I still love it more than most of the Leatherface movies, more than most of the Texas Chainsaws, because it's not really a franchise that I go for that much. But for some reason, this movie, the fact that it's so campy, sells me every time.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought it would be a little bit hard to get that franchise on the board in any other category, but obviously prop. So we'll see. I mean, Chris, you do have a prop next. What would you like to take as your prop?
And my prop is going to be the lament configuration from Hellraiser. I'm going to go with
It's on my list.
the puzzle box.
Cool. And the first Hellraiser representation.
Wow.
Yeah. Mostly I like that prop just because obviously it's a powerful thing and it's used to summon the Cenobites into this world. And it looks cool. It's just a cool looking prop.
Mm-hmm.
And it's scary as hell because it's like that thing can suddenly just stab you. Just a thing will come out and stab you, and then you're cursed.
Right, exactly. Like,
but it's amazing.
What?
Yeah, this was on my list. It's a good pick.
I've never seen it, so I'm excited to check it out. It is
Check
a
out
slasher?
the
Hellraiser?
2022. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to check it out.
Yeah, slasher. Yeah, it's a slasher.
Yeah.
There's a lot of body horror, Dylan.
There's a lot of body horror, and it's more. I guess it
Hellraiser.
is. It's a huge like cosmic horror movie too.
Yeah,
but like
it's
a lot of
not-
slashing
it's
still
not a
happens.
human
It's like
so-
so many things in that movie.
Nice. Yeah.
Or that series.
I was just asking because I like to gravitate more towards slasher and body horror than jump scare horror. Like I don't do Insidious, Conjuring, any of that shit. So, even though
I
I
think
have
you'd like
seen it.
Hellraiser.
What was that, Chad?
So that's not shit.
Well, any of that stuff. Matt, what is going to be your final pick? You get your pick at a death scene. So what is it going to be? Are you going to continue the trend and go 4 for 4 out of 5 with Nightmare?
Yes,
Yeah,
which
you
is
are.
crazy because of how much I love the Halloween franchise.
Okay. You got your final.
My kill is going to be from a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, but that's not surprising. That series, even if the movies are bad, always
I
has.
know
great
what you're
kills.
picking.
Do
I feel
you?
like I also know.
Yeah.
I have an idea
let's-
of the like popular pick, and then I have an
Okay,
idea of
maybe
what
not.
the Matt pick might be. So,
Man, I really
let's
wish
see.
you guys could tell me what you guys think. You can. I'm the last one. What do you guys think it's going to be?
Well,
I
you
think
tell us first,
Yeah.
because I don't want to sway your pick.
Oh, you're not. I'm going to pick this. It's the TV kill from Nightmare on Elm Street 3
Oh.
to Dream
okay.
Warriors.
Yeah.
That's what I thought you were gonna go with.
Bitch.
I
Say
said-
it, Matt.
I said Johnny Depp in the bed is the popular pick. Matt's pick is the Welcome to Primetime.
I thought it was the popular
Yeah.
pick, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna go with Tina.
But Tina's
it was
another
like-
fantastic
that's a
pick
great
on the
one, yeah.
ceiling and
Yeah.
Tina was my alternate Nightmare pick. So yeah.
Why is that your favorite pick, Matt? Is there an awesome quote that comes with it or anything?
there is an there is an awesome quote, in fact. But no, it's just it's a fun it represents most of what I love about the Nightmare movies, which is it's fun, it's funny, it's creative. And once it happens, it makes you go, wait, did that happen in the real world or in a dream? Because right after that, Larry Fishburne walks out and she's hanging from the TV. And you're like, wait a minute, was he in the actual TV or was he in the dream in the TV? What happened there? That's what makes Nightmare the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
That's
it.
what makes it so good.
love
But
that.
I love that scene. Yes, there's you're gonna here's a way to break into TV or whatever, and then welcome to primetime, bitch. That whole stuff, that's so good. It represents that also as the iconic stuff from Nightmare, which is his quotes. So yes, it's just a scene I really love, and it's fun.
That scene is very, very funny, and it's also so tragic because she in the beginning was talking about how you really want to she wants to break into TV, like he said, and then
Break in.
and that's how and that's how she dies, and he exploits that. Oh,
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing about being killed in your dreams is he's exploiting the things that are on your mind that are closest to you.
Yeah. While we're on the topic though, like Nightmare, like I had a list of nightmare kills I love. I love the one in Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare with the hearing aid. Because as someone
Oh
who
yeah.
suffers from hearing loss, just the idea of him having that hearing aid attached to his ear and like the
Dropping
screeching of the
pins.
chalkboard, just dropping the pins. That was my backup if I didn't get the psycho shower scene because it is a little niche, but also I think it's if anyone who watches that, I can't imagine anyone sitting still during that. Maybe y'all do. Maybe y'all are just thicker skinned than I am, but that was my
The
other
Roach
pick for that.
Motel kill from
Oh my God.
Nightmare 4, I think it is.
Mm.
I think that's the one that has like where he transforms her into a roach inside of
Yeah,
a
like
roach
all the
motel.
limbs
Yeah.
and stuff. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty master.
So
But I
crazy.
love it.
Mm-hmm. Wow, so good. Carrie, what is going to be your prop? You're the final pick of your draft board.
All right. So you alluded to it earlier, Dylan.
Sorry.
It is the chain. No, that's okay. It's a chainsaw from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Let's go. Yeah.
Nice.
This is one that just to me, even when I was like a kid and hadn't seen any of the Texas Chainsaw movies, just if you would go to a haunted house and it would like end with a chainsaw, I just knew enough about pop culture about Texas Chainsaw Massacre for that to scare the shit out of me. It's still a scary to like hearing a chainsaw is still terrifying to me.
Yeah.
The way he swings it at the end,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
like it's no, you're right. It's a great
Out of
prop.
frustration.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, so my final pick, I alluded earlier that I might, as a joke, not a joke, but like for a fun niche oddball choice pick, Heather Langenkamp. I'm not going to, even though I'd love to get Nightmare representation on my board. I can't just because I wanted
Yeah, me
this
too.
film represented as well. Because in this draft, I knew it would be very Halloween Nightmare and maybe like Friday the 13th or Scream heavy. That I wanted to, throw some representation out there. We got Candyman on there. Chris got Pearl, got Texas Chainsaw. Carrie got Texas Chainsaw. You got Hellraiser. But I have to represent one of my favorite modern slashers. So for my final girl, I'm picking. She dies a lot. Tree Gelman from Happy Death Day. That movie, I don't love the
that
sequel. I thought about taking the sequel. I don't love the sequel because I think I think it's interesting, but it's
not
also
as horror.
not as horror as the first.
Yeah.
But the first movie, I think I just love the time loop movies. I don't know what it is. Palm Springs, Groundhog Day, this, Edge of Tomorrow. Like, I love that type of framing device because it works for me every time. And this one in particular, just the idea of like making it a slasher and just like all the different ways you can kill someone and still kind of like get a reset every time. But also the character development that comes with it too. It sounds like I'm picking the movie. I'm picking the character because I also think she goes through a lot of growth in the film, which is also important. I think, having a well-rounded character. She's someone that the audience doesn't really like at first, but ultimately kind of warms up to as it goes on. She grows as a character, which I really like through this experience. And she's the only final girl to die multiple times in her movie. Or at least as many times in her movie as she does. Maybe some other girls die multiple times. Laurie dies a few times in the franchise of Halloween, but
But yeah, not canonically. You actually said most of the things I wanted to say. There's very few characters that I disliked as much as I did and liked as much as I did by the end. I really like the sequel. I like both of them. I think that there's like a distinct funness. I really wish that they would make Happy Death Day Tokyo Drift. Because I just really like that franchise. It makes me very happy.
I think we're getting another.
It just didn't do as well, so I hope that they still do it. So, but
maybe a streaming thing.
Yeah, hopefully.
Go the Child's Play route.
I think it's a great pick. I really like that character. Good stuff.
Wanted to represent it. It's a movie that deserves to be on this draft board in some way. So Chad, you get to round us out, buddy. You get to tell us your prop. What would you like for your final pick?
Villain?
Oh, that's right, the mask. I wrote down Michael Myers' mask, and I was looking at that as the villain. Yeah,
okay.
Your villain. You already.
Well, first off, I wanted to say I love your pick. It was underrated a movie I think at first, and then it started to really catch on, and people are like, "That's one of the best," especially when the sequel came out. So for my villain, I know we were kind of alluding to like maybe like a collection. So like what I have, and you guys can like help me decide what will end up going on the graphic because it's kind of the same thing, but I have Ghostface, but I had specifically because I was like, well, if I have to pick one, it's going to be Billy Loomis because he's the most iconic, he's the scariest,
I would say
I
Billy and
personally think-
Stu is.
I think you can
is the
take them as a
killer.
duo because they are the collective Ghostface.
Okay.
I don't
That
think
was
you
the
can take
point that I was
Ghostface as
thinking of.
I don't think you could take Ghostface as a just Ghostface because I
Okay.
think Ghostface differs because it's a mask for whoever's inside. But
That's
I think
what I was
you could take
thinking.
Billy and Stu. Billy and Stu.
That's
work.
what I was thinking would be kind of a cheat if I just said Ghostface, and you're like, that's like
Yeah.
fine. How many
Yeah,
killers
Billy and
is that?
Stu is-
10? 9.
Yeah.
There's only that's
Yeah,
right.
I don't think you can just take
Three.
Ghostface, but I also don't think you can take just one without the other either.
So I'm glad that you're giving me Billy and Stu because that's just Billy's the scarier, but Stu's my favorite.
Yeah,
Because
I
he's
agree.
so
My
silly
mom's
as
gonna
hell.
be so mad.
You hit me with the phone, dick. Billy though is just so like I rewatching it just recently, just seeing him he's so freaking scary and just like seeing him in The Craft and he's not at all that.
Right, yeah.
Ulrich, and I'm like, how is this dude in like the same year be two totally different people? That's acting, and I'm like, that's just incredible. And when he like finally shows his true face, I mean, he's not that far away from his true face in the rest of the movie, but when he does finally go full Billy Loomis, it's like so creepy, and I'm just like, holy shit. And then Stu is that more like innocent, dumb kind of creepy, like
just along for the ride. Basically.
Yeah, what do they call it? The where you identify with your captor almost, but you have all
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, you have a lot of those kind of like dumb go along with it guys, but it's really the best pair I think in like all of cinema of like for like villains. So I had to go with those. So on the graphic, if I could have like Billy, Stu, and just like the ghost face mask like in the middle, maybe something like that.
Yeah. I'll play around with it.
Love
I think
it.
it's a good pick.
Yeah. I know that we have to hurry up here, but I think it's a great pick. It was on my list. I think they are the best of the killers, of the Ghostface killers. And yes, they have to go together. Speaking of earlier, you were talking about a death scene that wasn't really a death scene, and could there actually be something like that? I think that Billy's death scene in that movie, which is not really a death scene, or his first death scene in that movie, which is not really a death scene, could have qualified, and I actually considered it. So,
fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah. So great picks all around. I know we have to kind of rush this to an end. For honorable mentions, I know we probably have so many. I thought it might be cool if afterwards we just kind of in the comments just like list all our honorable mentions because I do have a lot of them. And I do.
Can I mention just one?
Yeah, Chad, you can mention one.
The prop that I almost took was the voice changer from Scream.
That's a good idea.
I'm going to quickly, just real quick, Kristen Parker from Nightmare 3, Jesse Walsh from Nightmare 2, and Ellen Ripley, Norman Bates, Death as the killer, and Jason Voorhees, and then the ghost mask as the prop.
Yeah, I thought about Norman Bates, but I went with the scene instead of the character Norman Bates. But yeah, all in all, a great draft board. I'm going to read them off real quick. Chris, Sidney Prescott, Us, Tyler Family Massacre, Pearl, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, and The Lament Configuration, Matt, Laurie Strode, Freddy Krueger, The Dream Warriors, Freddy's Glove, and the TV Kill in Dream Warriors, Carrie, Nancy Thompson, Mrs. Voorhees, Casey Scream, Halloween H2O, and the Chainsaw from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Dylan, Psycho Shower Scene, Good Guy Doll, Michael Myers, aka The Shape, Candyman 2021, and Tree Gelbman, and Chad, Scream 2, Ellen Ripley, Judith Myers, POV Kill, Myers, William Mask, and Billy and Stu for Scream. That is the draft board. Very exciting. Also, would have loved to get Fear Street on there, but it is also very new. I thought about the bread slicer for the death, the slicer through the head.
Oh god.
But yeah, any other honorable mentions we will put in the comments below. I will also put all of your information really quickly. You can find Chris and Matt on FrameWreck this month talking about a film that Chris has seen that Matt and I have not. Matt is always on the channel as well, FrameWreck every single month, and we will have Chris on plenty more times, I'm sure, on FrameWreck and Draft Day. As for Carrie and Chad, you can find them both competing in MCU Trivia. You can find Carrie and Chad also on their show Welcome to Primetime. You can find Chad channel where he ranks things, and you can find him here on Picture This, and you can find them both just on Draft Day and other things. We're gonna just be using all of you on the channel as much as you want to be here and as much as we can afford to have you also. I know we kind of rushed that ending, but if you guys have anything else you want to plug, please do so in the comments, because I want people to see you and find you, and not in the scary Michael Myers way, but I want them to experience what you have to show the world artistically, because you're all great guests. Thank you all so much for joining. Sorry I rushed this ending, but this was a really fun slasher draft, and happy Halloween, everyone. Take care. Stay safe out there. Bye.